Shalom everyone, and we are finishing this week the book of Leviticus, and it is the parasha of BeHukotai, in my laws. That's a simple. We'll see it's not that simple, this translation, and that means we are in the book of Leviticus, chapter 26, verse 3. So the parasha is starting, אם בחוקותיי תלכו, ואת מצוותיי תשמרו, ועשיתם אותם. אם בחוקותיי, if or in case you will follow, you will walk, it says walk, in my חוקות, חוקה, we'll see there's a special understanding to that, in my laws, ואת מצוותיי תשמרו, and you observe my mitzvot, ועשיתם אותם, and then you do them, which is a very, among the scholars, very, it's not so easy to understand the verbs and the nouns over here. Which one of them is saying what? We'll see, we come into it. And then verse 4, ונתתי גשמכם בעיתם, I'll give your rains in its time, ונתנה הארץ יבולה, and the earth will give its yield, ועץ השדה ייתן פריו, and the tree of the field will give its fruit. Okay, verse 6, ונתתי שלום בארץ, and I give shalom, peace in the land, ושכבתן ומחרית, and you can lie down and nobody can get you into fear and anxiety. והשבתי חיה מן הארץ, and there won't be evil animals in the land. וחרב לא תעבור בארצכם, and a sword would not go through your land. There's a lot of meanings to that. ורדפתם את אויביכם ונפלו לפניכם לחרב. And when you chase your enemies, they lose. ורדפו מכם 500 ו100 מכם רבבה ירדופו. 5 of you will chase 100 of your enemies, and 100 of you will chase 10,000 of them, and they will fall in front of you. ופניתי אליכם, I'll give my face to you, והפרתי אתכם, I'll multiply you, והרביתי אתכם, והקימותי את בריתי אתכם, and I will establish my covenant with you. Okay, it's like many more blessings. Very important, verse 12. והתהלכתי בתוככם, and I will walk in the midst of you, והייתי לכם לאלוהים ואתם תהיו לי לעם. And I will be your God, and you will be my nation. These words have an amazing promise, especially nowadays. But then it goes, verse 15, ואם בחוקותיי תמאסו, but if you despise my laws, ואם את משפטיי תיגל נפשי, and there's another word for laws, and you'll despise my laws, it's another way of saying it, לבלתי לעשות את כל מצוותיי, do not following or doing my mitzvot, להפרכם את ביתי, you break the covenant, אף אני אעשה זאת לכם, I'll do the same to you, והפקדתי עליכם בהלה, and I will put upon you the behala. The hala is when you get shocked and startled, frightened. את השחפת ואת הקדחת, מחלות עיניים דיבות נפש. And there are the names of terrible diseases that are following. ונתתי פניי בכם, I'll give my face in you. וניגפתם לפני אויביכם, and you will fall in front of your enemies. ורדו בכם שונאיכם, and the ones who hate you, they will not just control you, but they will control you and press on you. You will, ונסתם ואין רודף אתכם, and you will run away and nobody's chasing. ואם עד אלה לא תשמעו לי, and still you don't understand, you don't listen to me, ויספתי ליסרה אתכם 7 על חטאותיכם, and I'll add on 7 times upon your sins. ושברתי את גאון עוזכם, and I will break the pride of your power. And so on, it goes on like this. Terrible curses. Okay, and let's go and ask ourselves, what is this about? Brimstone and fire, what is it about? Okay, so let's go to the beginning. Verse 3, chapter 26 in Leviticus. And there it says, BeHukotai telechu v'mitzvotai tishmeru. And Rashi, the biggest commentator, we always refer to him because he gives us the guidelines and the hints, because with all the Kabbalah he knew he could not at that time write it down. He put some hints. So he starts, Im BeHukotai telechu. When it says, and God is saying, when you walk in my statutes, chukah is, it's a law, basically. It's a given law. Okay, we would think, says Rashi, that means the mitzvot, right? But then he says that mitzvotai tishmeru, and you will observe my mitzvot, which means mitzvot does not equal chukim, laws. Mitzvot and chukim are two different words. Okay? Hama ani mekayem bechukotai telechu. So what does it mean? So what is the request if you walk in my chukot? And what does it mean? And you observe my mitzvot. Okay? And that's a deep issue. So Rashi is not going too much into it. But he's saying there is a difference, and he's trying somehow to explain the difference. Why they both support each other. Okay? Now, before we go to this question, because it's a key question about understanding this parasha, let's move on to what we said about Venatati Shalom Ba'aretz. Verse 6. Venatati, and I will give Shalom, peace in the land. And Rashi says, Shema tomru, harei ma'achal, v'harei mishteh, im en shalom en klum. Okay, we have food, we have drinks, we are comfortable with it, but there's no peace. And if there's no peace, there's nothing. Because if you have sustenance and housing and whatever, but there's no peace, which means you're always afraid a war can break, or war can go crazy and destroy all what you've achieved, so it means nothing, because you're so, as we said before, startled, you're so anxious, you're so much afraid you can lose everything in a second, so you can't enjoy what you've got. So that's why it says, Venatati shalom ba'aretz, and I'll give peace in the land, mikan she'ashalom shakul keneged hakol. From there we understand that peace is like everything else. Which means a person can have everything, but if there's no peace, he has nothing. Okay? And that's why peace is so important. Now that we're talking about, we just came into an era that finished a whole era since 1945, that it looked like world politics is somehow stable. Yeah, there's some wars in some, faraway countries, but, in the modern world, the first world, second world, you don't see wars anymore, because the leaderships are not insane anymore. Everybody has sanity. People understand wars are not means in order to solve problems. Only in the Middle East you have, and sometimes somewhere else, somebody going crazy enough to fight, but it's limited to those crazy regions. But Europe, forget it. And suddenly everything is not sure anymore. And because there's no peace, the economy goes crazy. And because there's no peace, the prices are going crazy. Everything, and people's trust in their lives is not there anymore. People are losing it again and again, and they don't trust their leadership to be able to stop any kind of war. And we thought it's over. That part in the history of humanity is over. That's how people thought. Like, wars? Not anymore. This is like too crazy. Oh, maybe in Afghanistan, but in very like crazy parts of the world, but not over here, not where we live. And most people, okay, thought it's beyond them. You don't have to worry about it. And then you realize you do have to worry about it. So how do we protect ourselves when everything is not safe anymore? When you don't trust the government anymore, when you don't trust the economy anymore, you have no idea what's going to be with the prices of energy, the prices of food and clothing. Nothing can be foreseen anymore. Everything is so upsetting, as it says, behala. Behala means it's more than anxiety. It's when you're like, oh, what's going on over here? That's behala. You're startled, you're afraid, you're in shock. This is behala. And the world is right now in shock. Things are not the way they used to be, and no one can say what's going to happen. Okay? And then we understand how important peace is, because when you don't have it, you realize nothing is there. So how do we protect ourselves? And how do we, in such an era, how do we gain back our certainty? How we gain back our certainty about life? How do we feel secure again? Because not feeling secure means nothing means anything. Okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sit down, do nothing, and wait till the world is going to become sane all over again. You can't afford doing that. Okay, you have things to do. You can't just stop and wait for world leaders to become sane and do talk to each other like grown-up people. It's like it doesn't work anymore. You can't do that, because if you wait, you keep on waiting. So what do you do? And the Zohar has some answers. And first of all, the first thing is about why the Torah is using three different expressions about chukot. Chukah, in modern Hebrew, chukah is a law you cannot change, like a constitution. Something that it's coming from the word chok, lachakok, which means to engrave. It's engraved in stone, therefore you can't just change it. The rules are the rules, and you cannot just change. Why? Because let's say there are rules and it's a constitution, but a new era is coming, like you see today in many countries, and you see that, so what if this is the law? You can interpret the law depends on who is interpreting the law. What kind of a judge? It's a liberal judge, it's a conservative judge, he is a lefty or a righty, and then he has totally different interpretations to the law. So what if it is a constitution and it is engraved? You don't know what's going on. And that means if people have the audacity to do what they didn't have ever before, like going the opposite to what the constitution declared, so that it's not a law. There's no law anymore. But here we're talking not about laws of humans, we're talking about the constitution, the laws of God. So what's the difference between chukot, okay, and mitzvot? Because Rashi says it looks like we're talking about the same thing. Okay? Why? But the way it's written, it's not the same thing. And what does it mean to do them? There is to walk, there is to observe, the verb, to walk, telechu, there is to observe, tishmeru, and there is vasitem, and there is the to do. Again, we have three different categories, which means what's the difference between walking with the law, observing the law, and doing the law. Okay? If we don't understand that, there's no way you can understand the rest of the parasha. And of course, the Zohar comes to help us. And the Zohar says as follows. Well, I'm reading from the Zohar Asulam, Rabbi Ashlag's commentary, verse 16. אם BeHukotai תלכו, אם BeHukotai, דא אתר דגזירין דאורייתא תליין בהוא אתר. כמה דאמר את חוקותיי תשמורו. חוקו דאיקרא הכי, וגזירין דאורייתא בית כללן. ואת משפטיי תשמרו, משפטיי דאו אתר אחרי לה, דאי חוקה אחידת בית. ואת משפטיי תשמרו, משפטיי דאו אתר אחרה אילאה, דאי חוקה אחידת בי, מתחברן דבדה, דאילאי ותתאי, וכל פיקודי אורייתא, וכל גזרי אורייתא, וכל קידושי אורייתא, בהני אחידן, בגין דהי תורה שבכתב והי תורה שבעל פה. Okay, translation. Now, the Zohar is just bringing us that the word chukah, or in the modern translation, constitution, which means this is something that is engraved, etched in stone, and therefore, if the founding fathers of the nation created the constitution, nobody will dare to do anything against it. Okay, we had a dream about it. This dream has shattered into pieces, and you see all over the world, like all kinds of governments behaving against what people thought is their own constitution or the forefathers of their nation. Okay, so where is this coming from? What's going on over here that you cannot feel secure? Okay, so we're not talking about human beings making laws. We're talking about BeHukotai, my laws. Okay, mitzvotai, my mitzvot. Okay, what's the difference? And the Zohar is saying we can go back to Parashat Yitro. On Parashat Yitro, the nation of Israel is there on Mount Sinai, and everybody is totally united in order to be able to receive the revelation of Mount Sinai, a revelation of no precedence, and never anything like this happened again, that the whole nation was there experiencing that revelation together. Remember, every religion in the history of humanity is based on someone, one person, that had a revelation. He had a revelation while he was sleeping, while he was meditating, or she, it doesn't matter. And he comes to the people saying, God revealed himself to me, and he told me what is the truth, and you should follow me. Okay? Look through history, it's everywhere. Here, we have a whole nation of 600,000 people reaching an agreement that they have to be there for each other, and in a commitment. And the moment they had it, there was a revelation. Shavuot, Mount Sinai, revelation. On the 50th day after the Exodus. And then it says God started to speak. And the moment that happened, the Zohar says, Parchu nishmotem shel Israel. The souls of the whole nation of Israel left their bodies, and they were out of their bodies when they saw the law coming down. And where the word chukah is coming from, when they saw the words coming down, and it says, and they saw the voices. So they saw the words coming down, and then the words, there's a beautiful description. I won't go into the lyric aspect of it, but they saw the words flying in the air, and then they saw them being engraved, etched in the tablets, the stone tablets. And what did they see over there? And the Zohar says every time a word hit the tablets and etched in the tablet, they saw from the hitting, they saw a whole tree of 70 branches coming out. And from each branch, 49 more branches coming out. And so on and so on and so forth. And how do you explain that beautiful animation that the Zohar is giving to us? And the Zohar explains they saw that whatever thing that the human being is doing, they saw exactly the laws of cause and effect. If you do A, that's what's going to happen. If you do B, that's what's going to happen. How? By our actions, we affect our environment, we affect our destiny, we affect our future, the future of our body, the future of our soul. They saw all decrees and rules of the universe. That's what the Zohar is saying. Which means when you say BeHukotai, you mean being able, okay, to understand and follow and walk according to the laws of how this universe is structured. Which means in a simple way, you won't ever put your finger in the electric socket. Why? You're not crazy. You're not going to drink gasoline. Why? Because you know it's not God's decree. That's how the universe works. If a human being drinks gasoline, that's going to hurt you till kill you. If you're going to touch electricity of high voltage, that can hurt you or basically kill you. Okay, so you don't do it with the normal state of mind, because it's not a matter of faith or religion. This is what you do, this is what you don't do. Why? That's the way it is. And you can't just say, God, make it please that I can drink gasoline without being poisoned. You don't do that. That's called BeHukotai, on the simple thing. And which means telechu, wherever you go, whatever you do, that's halichot. Halichot means to walk. It means also your manners. You're not going to go against those decrees that the world is structured of. Which means, if you really understand it, it's that you do not steal not because police is going to catch you, and not because you're afraid God is going to punish you. After 120, you go to hell, and you're going to purgatory, and you're going to suffer because you were a thief. No, we're talking about telechu, which means your manners, your way of behavior. You won't go against the rule of the universe. Why? Because stealing is against God. What does it mean? What do we want in life? We want happiness, fulfillment. We want feeling successful, free, and so on. But the moment you go against the rules of the universe, which means you want to be connected to real, true, lasting success, you have to connect to the Creator within you, which means Adam, which means all of humanity, was created in the image of God. If you're trying to fight that image, which means if you understand that you have a godly image within you, so then you'll try to be independent, which means if you're independent, you can do it all by yourself. You do not need to steal other people's work in order to be successful. You do not need to cheat people in order to be successful. You do not need to take somebody else's fruits of their work in order to be successful. On the contrary, when you do that, you go against how the universe is structured. There are cause and effect. You don't do it not because of fear, because of awe. We spoke about it through the last few weeks. What does it mean, awe? You know there are rules to this world, and you're not going to break them because you are, a normal, sane human being, and you're not going to break those laws because it's insanity. As I said, it's like drinking gasoline. You know it's not good for you, don't do that. Okay? So, that's about the BeHukotai. What about the mitzvot? The mitzvot, it says about them to observe. And we learn that the mitzvot are basically coming from the word letzavet, to team. The deep meaning of the word mitzvah, all the biblical laws and orders, it's about one thing. Whatever you do, team it with God, which means you build a house, team it with God. Make sure, we spoke about it in this book, Parashat Tazria and Metzora, you build a house, bring God's light into it. Do not build an empty building. Yeah, but you have to build the floors, the walls and the ceilings. Has to be quality material and so on and so forth. Yes, but if you do not put God's light into it, it's just an empty shell. It will never be a home. It will never be a place that will give you power, security, and creativity. Let's say you build a place for business, okay? You need to build it in the right consciousness, and that's about the house, about everything else you do. That's mitzvotai tishmeru. What does it mean tishmeru? Observe. Observe means you should do the right thing, but also have your consciousness involved, that whatever you do has a spiritual dimension to it, and without that spiritual dimension, you just do it out of habit. It's a body without a soul. So it's going to be a business without a soul, a home without a soul. That's not a home, it's just a building, a structure. Okay? So you will be wondering, why don't I feel successful and fulfilled? Because you did not observe the mitzvot, and the mitzvot, they deal with everything that has to do with everyday's life. Okay? Not just, spiritual moments. So there are mitzvot about food, there are mitzvot about how to eat the food, there are mitzvot about how to look at time. All of those that are written in the Torah, they deal with both aspects, which means you need not just not to break the laws, but not breaking the law still does not make you a successful person. You need also, when whatever you do, you have to do it with all your might. What does it mean? You have to do it in a good way. You have to do it with all your effort to do the best you can do on the physical aspect. However, in the same time, you have to make sure that the spiritual dimension of your action should be also thought about and focused about, because, mitzvah without kavanah, without the meditation, just doing the action, it's like guf bli neshama, like a body without a soul. In Hebrew it rhymes, mitzvah belo kavanah, keguf belo neshama. Okay, and here we go, and that's what it says. The Torah is giving us the rules of how to behave in a manner that we simply do not break the laws of the universe. Also, how do we associate, team with the spiritual dimension in every physical action we do? Let's say I have a factory. I'm making some products. If I just put just the physical aspect for perfection without a spiritual aspect, something always will going to be missing. Okay? Whatever, and by this example, everything else we do. So, and then when it says va'asitem otam, and you'll do them, asitem, whoever knows Kabbalah knows that the word asitem comes from the verb asiyah, or the noun asiyah. The verb is la'asot, which means, that means bringing it into this physical world manifestation. Okay? Of course, if somebody has positive, amazing, great energies, but he never follows his words and meanings, and he doesn't follow up. So of course there's no asiyah, it doesn't manifest, which means the road to hell is full with good intentions. If it was it's not a Jewish saying. Okay, if it was a Jewish saying, it will be the road to hell is followed by good intentions, not followed by actions. Or the better one, the road to heaven is paved with good intentions, followed by good actions, which means you have to follow up on it. And if you don't follow up, you have like, oh, I really understand the way God created the universe and the laws, but you never, in your everyday behavior, it doesn't look like there's any teaming over there, which means, oh, it's very nice in the Bible class, but when it comes to everyday behavior, there's no trace of what you studied, no trace is being manifested in what you do. That's vasitem otam, the manifestation, the follow-up. But then the Zohar adds to it another level. And the Zohar says, we're also talking about, on one hand, Alkenim BeHukotai, that's the Zohar verse, I just explained it right now. Verse 17, אם בחוקותיי הם כל אלו הגזרות והדינים והעונשים והמצוות, שם המקום ההוא נקרא תורה שבעל פה, דהיינו מלכות שנקרא חוקה. So again, the Zohar is just saying, there is a Torah שבעל פה. When the Torah has been given on Mount Sinai, it was given in few aspects. First of all, there is the physical, seen, simple aspect, the words of the Torah. But that's not the whole Torah. And we read what the Or HaChaim HaKadosh is saying, Rabbi Chaim ben Atar, עוד ירצה על פי מאמרם ז"ל, כי התורה יש בה 4 דרכים. In the Torah we know there are 4 layers of consciousness, understanding, and perceiving of every sentence, verse, issue in the Torah. The first one of the 4 is Pshat, the simple way. The simple way is the way that a simple mind, not sophisticated, not spiritual, understand. You understand not to eat pork. You understand that to light Shabbat candles before Shabbat is coming in. Okay? You understand A, B, C, D, all kinds of stuff. Do not steal, do not kill. You just simply understand that's a pshat. Every little kid can understand that. Okay? But there's also remez, and drash, and sod. ומאלו נפרדו 70 פנים, in which each one of them, there's 70 different aspects of understanding of each law or sentence in the Torah. וכל אופן לך מעורכין ושפילין ונתיבות. And that's in many, many, many ways, paths and directions. והוא מה שאמר בחוקותיי. That's why it says בחוקותיי in plural, which means תלכו, you will walk, meaning בכל אורחין ושפילין ילך בהם בפירוש הכתובים. You simply has to follow the rules, otherwise you're going to hurt yourself, and that's very simple. Very simple. It's the way it is simple that a human being is not designed to digest gasoline. If you drink gasoline, that will poison your system, right? It's nothing to do with faith. Simply you're not supposed to do it because your body is not capable of dealing with gasoline without being poisoned. But then you have to understand there's also the remez, which is the hints about deeper meanings behind the verses and behind the laws. And then you have the drash, which is the even deeper understanding of the structure of the oral Torah. What does it mean, oral Torah? When it says, do not eat a lamb in its mother's milk, it means also not eating milk and meat together. Although it doesn't say clearly. Which means on Mount Sinai, the nation of Israel received the law, the one who is written, and also all the interpretations and the understandings and the different layers of comprehension in different layers of understanding all the way down till Kabbalah, which is the fourth layer of understanding, the spiritual, real, deep meaning of every mitzvah in the Torah. All of them were given on Mount Sinai. However, if you want to say, I don't remember that I got it on Mount Sinai, I just believe what it says over here, and I look at the 5 books of Moses, and it's very clear what it says. I follow what is common sense, whatever it says so. There were few waves in Jewish history of people who tried to declare, this is the Torah, and all the other commentaries. We don't remember hearing that. Of course, it was always thousands of years after the event. But usually, what was their motive? If we're talking about the time of the Hellenistic period, when the Greeks were ruling in Israel and over most of the Jewish world, okay, or we're talking about later on the Karaites, that was under the Muslim rule, okay, and there were different waves of people who declared rebellion, like we don't agree. And if you really go deep, what was behind it? They simply wanted to be what we call modern, which means, as Rabbi Ashlag says, if you really doubt the Torah, you start it, that means that I can do whatever I feel like. So I can, although things they said, only what says in the Torah, but they didn't follow really about do not steal, do not sleep with your neighbor's wife. And basically that was the thing. I want to just do whatever. And if the Torah is not really from God, who cares about the Torah? I can do whatever I want. It's just a moral thing, tradition. No, it's not. That's what the warning, Parashat BeHukotai. If you're not going to take seriously all the laws you've learned already, that these laws are not for me, says the Creator, they're there for you not to hurt yourself, not to make too many mistakes that are going to cost you too much. Okay? Somebody is, again, going back, somebody is drinking gasoline. Okay? And he's hurt. He's poisoned. Is that a punishment from God? No, it is punishment from his stupidity. Correct? Or rebellious nature. I will do whatever I want, and I don't care about anyone telling me any advices. Okay? That's why Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai insisted to tell us that what we read in the Torah, Rabbi Shimon says it in Parashat Yitro, Mount Sinai Revelation, all the 613 mitzvot in the Torah, they are 613 advices, the Creator's advices to his people, how to better their own souls. Why do I need to improve my own soul? What is called self-help, self-improvement. Because we know even today, with all the scientific discoveries of the last century in psychology and sociology and stuff like this, when you invent, and we spoke about it last week, when you invent in your own mind, in your own state of mind, philosophy, spirituality, and so on, and your positive psychological capital is high because you invested in it, which means you think optimistically, you have hope, you have a vision, you have resilience, which means you're really stubborn about doing the right thing no matter what the social pressure is about, not being so honest, not being such a person of values. Oh, there's pressure from society around me. When you have enough positive psychological capital, then you you simply do what's right. And that means you have to know the laws of the universe, that you can't steal, you cannot kill, you cannot do that stuff, because not because it's not nice and nobody saw it means it's okay, not because it's not good for your PR. We're talking about something much deeper than that. You really behave, walk by knowing these laws. You don't get hurt yourself because you don't get other people hurt. And that means you can achieve much more, and your inner power, gain, capital will be growing all the days of your life. However, here come the mitzvot. It's not just about not stealing. It's not just about not killing. It's not about lying. It's something much deeper than that. As a human being, you are made, composed of two entities, a soul and a body. And therefore, as a human being, you are a magical creature. And you have the ability and the commitment to inject magic in whatever you do. How do you do that? You do that with using the part of the brain that animals do not have. Is that part that can instill meaning, godliness in everything you do. That's called mitzvot. Okay? Yes, there are mitzvot, for instance, like, shaking the lulav in the holiday of Sukkot. A lot of people shake the lulav and they feel like maybe discomfort, maybe some mockery. Grown-up people taking an etrog, a citrus, and a palm tree, a palm, and other herbs, and you put it together and you shake it to different directions like a little dance. Doesn't that look like shamanism, something that maybe it's not the time anymore, it's over, we are in a modern society? Here goes the story. The moment you feel uncomfortable with that, you'll already start to look for reasons why the whole codex of the law, which is the Torah, is, you can't give it a credit. It's man-made. And the moment you think so, you can do whatever you want. If men did it, I don't think like them and I'm entitled to my opinion. But here it speaks about BeHukotai telechu or mitzvotai tishmeu. These are the laws etched in stone that the whole universe is simply playing the game in harmony as long as we go with these laws. And the mitzvot is that aspect that every human being has within, not just doing the physical aspect, but also instilling into it a spiritual, higher, out-of-the-box meanings. Otherwise, it will always be boring, not satisfying, not accomplishing, like empty. Okay? And you need that in order to feel accomplished. So when it says va'asitem otam, the Zohar says very clearly, Ma'u va'asitem otam, verse 18. What does it mean va'asitem otam? We already used the verb telechu, walking, mitzvotai tishmeu, observing. Why do we need the verb doing? ומשיב אלא מי שעושה מצוות התורה והולך בדרכיו. Whoever is doing the mitzvot of the Torah and is walking in the ways of God, הוא כאילו עשהו למעלה. It is like he made him above. Made whom? So the Zohar makes it clear. אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא. So the Holy Blessed be He, God, said, כאילו עשני. It's like He made me. What does it mean made me? Did I made up the Creator? In a way, yes. In a way, yes. Divinity must be brought down to earth in order to be manifested. What can bring divinity down to earth? A. Walking by the rules. Okay? B. Observing the mitzvot, which means observing consciously that everything we do needs to be instilled with a spiritual dimension. So you build the house, the Torah told us in the book of Leviticus. You build the house, when you start building it, you put the cornerstone and you say with your mouth, this house is going to be built for the service of the Creator only. Only good things are going to happen in this house. Only positive, holy stuff is going to happen in this house. And when you say it, you do it. You make it happen. You summon in the supernatural reality into the physical action of building a house. When you move into the house, you put a mezuzah on the doors, which means another way of inviting the magical godly consciousness, holiness, into the physical house. Same thing, whatever you do, whatever you cook, if you have a consciousness of bringing God's light into this physical manifestation, this physical world, you create that magic. And this is not given only for the higher magicians, like the high priest only, or Moses. Oh, we're not in the same level. We're not capable of doing that. So what are you here for? Just to eat like an animal, breathe like an animal, not asking questions because you don't have a part of the brain for that purpose at all. Okay? But you're not an animal. You're a human being. You were created for that purpose. The word Adam, the sages are telling us, is because it's coming from the word Adame le'elyon. Adame, I will become similar to the divine. If you are a human being, Adam in Hebrew, it means you have the urge, the need to become similar to God. If you're not following that, you go against this. You go against the constitution of this universe. You go against your nature. What will happen if you go against your nature? You will simply start to fall apart because you're not going by the Hukot of this universe. Simple as that. And that's why God is saying, Ki'ilu asani, it's like they made me. What does it mean they made me? The rule in this universe, that God will not be present, the magic won't be present, the light of the endless won't be present in our reality unless we invite, force it in to what we do. Why? Because we needed a space after the creation. We needed the space that we can generate, we can create it. We are the ones who say, let there be light. And if we don't say, let there be light, there won't be light. So that's why God says, it's like you made me, which means God's presence. Okay? God's fulfillment is present in our lives only if we command it into our lives. This is our job. Okay? That's the only purpose of life. So if we look at every event, aspect of your life, if you put this into the equation of what do I have to do in order to feel successful, when we do that, when we invite God's light, when we have that awe, awareness of the perfect presence of God or the endless light in our lives, and we force it into everything we do by simply training our mind. How do you train your mind? You meditate. In the meditations, you imagine how you bring, Rabbi Zakluria is teaching us, you imagine how to bring the spiritual light from the upper universes, from the upper dimensions, and then you guide them, lead them, force them into the physical actions. And by the way, the Arizal is saying, Rabbi Zakloria, if you do not have that consciousness, you're not really doing any mitzvah. You're not really achieving anything. You're not going to really achieve transformation and change because of your actions. If you don't transform and you do not change, what are you doing this stuff for? Okay? So it's not just enough to do the right thing, but it's also, that's why it says to observe. Observing means having an alert, present consciousness in whatever you do and instill it into whatever you do. And that's why it says, and you made them. You make them happen. How do you make them? If you do not inject godly spiritual light to whatever you do, it doesn't exist basically. It comes and it goes. Or you have it, but you can never enjoy it. Why? It's empty. Simply empty. Simply full of void. That's why you see two people doing the same actions. One has amazing results, amazing satisfaction, and the other one, it's like, so what? Okay, I built a house, I did this, I did that. So what? You know, that's what people do, and you don't see any magic, you don't experience any magic in your life. And, you know, humans without magic, that's what a shame. ונתתי גשמכם בעיתם. I'll give you your rains in its time. So of course in Israel, when it's very important that the rains will start raining around after Rosh Hashanah, after Simchat Torah. This is after the fields have been plowed, planted, and now they're waiting for the rain to come. If it's going to wait too long, there won't be crops. If it's going to rain on time, but then for a few months there's not going to be any more rain, whatever sprouts that will come out, they will wilt. And then if the rain is coming after or during the time of harvest, it's going to destroy the harvest. It doesn't matter if it's a harvest of wheat or the harvest of cotton. The rains have to come in its own time. What will make the climate change into uncomfortable climate that does not allow human life in a normal way? And the answer is, you know, when we consider the laws of the universe, we follow them, we apply them, and we use them in order to bring the divinity, the magic into everything we do. Then the Torah is saying, then you'll see amazing life. And you'll see peace and certainty. And you'll see reality serving our purpose. Not just reality. First is our mental reality, and then the physical reality will follow. Okay? So here, when we see, and the question is like this, so many people are asking, where was God when? You know, it could be personally about certain moments in a person's life, or it can be like, you know, certain times in the history of humanity in which you could see that, like, where was God when? Okay, when the 6 million Jews were murdered by the Nazis, when so many tens of millions were murdered by the communism in Russia, when tens of millions, even more than that, were murdered by communism in China, and when that happened in Rwanda, in Cambodia, there's so many other places of terrible, terrible events in the last century only. Okay, where was God when? And the answer is, in order to be able to see God in your life, you have to make it happen. That's what the Torah is talking. You have to bring it by your own actions. Because in the moment you shut God away from your life, you won't be able to see God in your life. And then the next aspect in the Zohar is about justice. Where is justice? Why do we see that there's no justice? And the Zohar is saying, in order to see justice, you need to make that happen. It depends on us, humanity. It does not, because this world was created as a what is called nekudat ha'olam hazeh, the point of this world, this physical world. What's special about it? That's the only point, only dimension in the whole of reality that there's enough darkness so you cannot see God's justice. You have to bring it down with your actions, with your meditations, and with the application to everything you do. Okay? What's the strongest and most powerful way to see that happening? And the Zohar says about, and you give your rain in its time, which means when all of the spiritual forces of the universe will give their forces, their powers to you, each by its own. Okay, how is that connected? Because the word gishmechem, rain, there's a simplistic translation, but in Hebrew, gishmechem is not just about rain. Gishmechem, the word geshem, means to materialize. Okay? There's another word in Hebrew for geshem, which is matar, materialize. Okay? So somebody is very materialistic. In Hebrew is gashmi. Okay? Okay? Gashmiyut means the material aspect. So in order to see the supernatural forces of the upper worlds materialize in your everyday life as a blessing, good fortune, good luck, you have to invite it in. We are finishing this week the book of Leviticus. Just a reminder what we just said in the beginning of the reading of this book, some 11 weeks ago. Okay, when the year started, and we started from Genesis, Genesis was about reenacting the rules. You need to walk in the ways of Abraham, which means you need to generate loving kindness wherever you follow, because without it, you don't have the right foot. Start with the right foot. Start with loving kindness everywhere you go. Without it, if you don't have the right foot, you can't walk. But then you need also the left foot. You need Isaac, the ability to create judgment, to awaken, to overcome the urges, to control, to overcome and be there for others and for yourself. And also to be able to say, no, it's enough. I can't abuse my life. You cannot go, I don't think I deserve that. Okay, that's the left column. That's Isaac, judgment. And then you need Jacob, Tiferet, which means how do you balance between the two? Unconditional love and at the same time, judgment and boundaries and so on and so forth. That's number one question in psychology. How can you have motherly love with tough love, a fatherly tough love with boundaries, in order to raise a sane, productive child? Okay? Jacob is how do you take these forces and you synthesize them and so on, and then you create the model of what is right. And then comes Joseph, and Joseph is teaching us how do you take those lofty ideas and manifest them in the physical world till you see bliss in whatever you do. Okay? After you understand that and you reenact the rules, then you go and you fight for your freedom. Exodus, that's a book of Exodus. And after you go and you achieve your freedom, you have to ask yourself, okay, now I'm free. Free to do what? The book of Leviticus. Free to do what? Free to have a magical, spiritual, on one hand, and practical practically successful life in which I reveal God's justice in this world by behaving practically good and spiritually perfect. And how do you connect to that? That's the book of Leviticus that we're finishing now. And what's the result? If we do not follow these books, if we do not follow these rules, if we are not attentive to those laws, to those callings, then the result won't be so beautiful as it says. Again, let's go again. Remember what we said. Veratati, there will be peace, there will be tranquility, safety. Okay? And more than that, what we said on verse 12 in the book of Leviticus chapter 26. והתהלכתי בתוככם והייתי לכם לאלוהים. And I will walk, God says, amongst you. I'll be your God. And Rashi is translating it. אטייל עמכם בגן עדן כאחד מכם. I will walk with you in the Garden of Eden like one of you. ולא תהיו מזדעזעים ממני, and you won't be scared of me. יכול לא תראו ממני, תלמוד לומר והייתי לכם לאלוהים. And you say, no, you won't have, yes, you will. I'm going to be your God. But it means you won't be shaken because we can bring in godly presence, and that's our calling, and make reality the Garden of Eden. That's our calling. That's our job. When we are aware to the rules we have just spoken about. However, if we choose not to do that, we choose to follow our own self-made philosophies about what's right and what's wrong, and we push away the presence of the heavenly light in our lives, what will be the result? Curses. Why? Because when you're not aware of those rules, you're going to push the wrong buttons. You're going to feel so empty and void. You're going to go crazy. You're going to go crazy, as it says, and because of that, look around. The result of suffering around the world right now is because craziness. People trying to get what doesn't belong to them. People trying to bring in all kinds of fulfillment that is not really godly or spiritual. And the result, they're always empty. And when you're empty and you're in pain, you think about, taking from somebody else. So then the rich are not satisfied, so they try to be even more rich by making the poor more poor so they can suck up all their belongings or whatever freedom they have just to feel what they'll never feel. Because if you don't have spirituality, then it doesn't matter how much fortune do you have, it will never be satisfying. So then you take more and more and more, and you become richer and richer. You make other people more and more poor, or you make them feel like they are richer, but you don't really let them be. And you don't see justice around. Why? Because you don't let God's light to dwell in here. So the Zohar is saying, so how do we protect ourselves from the injustice around? Do I have to wait till everybody wakes up so I can feel better? Which is so illogical, because whoever is waiting, we said, is going to continue waiting. When we are really determined, spiritually, physically, in our vision of making it happen in our everyday life, and using especially the Zohar says it's going to be like Noah's Ark, especially in our generation, to protect us from whatever chaos that is like raging in bigger and bigger senses around us, like it didn't happen for so many years. And we are not supposed to be focusing on the fear and the anxiety. We have to be focusing on becoming those people that the Torah is teaching us to become and using the tools of the Zohar. Thank you so much and have an amazing life, because here are the instructions how to have it without waiting for the others to make it happen. Thank you.